Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I got 5 more things to talk to you about. We aren't that far past my last video, so I banged these 5 things out pretty quickly, and I got 2 more things already for the next go. So we're in a state of great accomplishment right now. Anyways, we're starting off with 3 books, finishing with 2 video games. First up, Mace Windu, The Glass Abyss. So this book takes place right after the end of the Phantom Menace. So, upon Qui-Gon Jinn's death, a message is delivered to Mace Windu that was supposed to be delivered should Qui-Gon Jinn die. And although the two of them didn't really see eye to eye a lot on their opinions of the Force and how to use it and what the Jedi Council should be doing, they were really good friends and really respected each other for their differences of opinion and all that kind of stuff. So this message comes in, and it's Qui-Gon Jinn saying, I need you to help something that I started before I died. Now that I'm gone, I can't do it. So basically, Qui-Gon Jinn had visited this planet called Metagos and almost died and escaped barely with his life with the help of some of the locals, and vowed one day to come back and sort out the problems on this planet. So now he's left this task to Mace. So Mace goes there, and basically this planet, it was a desert planet, and then many years ago it had solar flare activity that basically melted the entire surface into this radioactive glass. So the entire population had to go underground, and they now live in all these different layers of the underground. There are these sod people who are these like dreamweaver type people who are peaceful, and they work in conjunction with the native insect species called the Hylians, which produce this crazy kind of silk that is used in all sorts of applications because it's super strong, like for construction, for everything. So the two of these species work in symbiosis to produce as much of this silk as possible, which is this planet's main source of economy, sort of thing. But there are 2 factions within this underground that are jeopardizing everything that's going on Metagos. There's this guy named Chulok. He's 2 beings that have been fused together. Locke is a Rhodian on one side, and Chu, I can't remember what type of species he is. And he's got crazy fighting abilities and crazy amounts of speed, so he's a really formidable opponent. And he is basically on the upper level of the underground and controls, I think, the silk distribution or something like that. I can't remember exactly how it worked. And then there's I can't remember her name, but there's another insectoid type species living underground, and this one being is the mother to all of the larvae that she gives birth to, and then they grow up, and they control another aspect of the silk production, sort of thing. So, but one gangster doesn't get along with the other, and of course, if anything should happen where one can wipe the other one out, they would take advantage of that. But the problem is, all the innocent people, all the people just trying to live their lives and produce the silk are going to be caught in the crossfire, right? So basically, Qui-Gon wants Mace to solve this problem under the surface of Metagos and get rid of all the ne'er-do-wells. So he shows up, he hides his lightsaber. He doesn't present himself as a Jedi, and I think he goes by the name of the Maker or something like that, some sort of handle. He ends up working for both of the gangsters as kind of like a freelance worker, and tries to get a good picture of what's going on the planet and the best way to attack this problem. While he's there, he starts having these terrible dreams, and he can't sleep well, and he's getting tired and weak, and something's very wrong, which all has something to do with the native species on the planet that are kind of not forcing this situation on him, but they're contributing to it. And the leader of the Sod, a woman named Kinshan Nightbird, takes Mace under her wing and shows her their ways, and eventually takes him into their clan and makes him one of them, and teaches him the ways of, I forget what they call it, but basically it's like the Force, but a different representation under their kind of religious beliefs. And in talking to her and sorting through some childhood memories, like how he was given to the Jedi, doesn't remember his parents, coming to terms with all of the truths of his existence and his life as a Jedi. And he even becomes romantically involved with Kin Shan Nightbird. So he's doing some very un-Jedi-like things, but it's helping him to get back to being his best Mace Windu. And in the end, they come up with the strategy to deal with the two gangsters, pit them against each other so that they'll basically wipe themselves out and then everything will be fine. But of course, best laid plans don't always work out. Shit goes wrong, complications, and it turns into a bit of a bloodbath. But obviously, Mace shows up in future movies after this book takes place, so you kind of know who wins. But that's the only bit of a spoiler that I'm going to give you. Great book. Really enjoyed it. And it was published last year in 2024. Next up, book 2 of the Dark Elf trilogy called Exile. This was published in 1990. It takes place 10 years after the events of the first book. So Drizzt Do'Urden, the Dark Elf, the drow that did not see eye to eye with the drow way and his family, he escaped his family and their retribution against him to the Underdark caves. And so he's been living underground for the last decade. The only company he has is his panther, Guinevere, who he can call back from the astral plane every so often and spend time with. And without having anybody to really talk to and other beings to, just be around and lead a normal kind of life, he reverts to this other side of himself that he calls the hunter. So getting by on your own in these underdark caverns is not an easy thing. There's so many different types of beings that are, kill you first, ask questions later, right? So he really has fallen into a kind of savage kind of state where it's, kill or be killed, right? And he's worried for himself that he's going to lose the Drizzt that he really is to these caverns. So one day he hears this tapping and he stumbles upon some of the, are they gnomes or I can't remember. But in the first book, he led an expedition and they ran into some of these elves mining or dwarves mining, and Drizzt was able to have his brother Dinan let one of them go, the leader of the expedition, but Dinan had the guy's hands chopped off. So Drizzt's like, oh, I remember these guys, and he follows them back to their hometown underground. I forget what it's called, Blending Stone or something like that. And he's really tempted to make contact with them and give himself up and present himself as, I'm a friend, I just need a place to call home and whatever. But he chickens out at the last second, goes back to his hovel. And in the meantime, back in Menzoberranzan, House Do'Urden is at war with House Hunnet, and House Do'Urden eventually wins. And with Matron Malice having that battle out of the way, she's like, now we can turn our attention to our bitch-ass son, Drizzt, and bring retribution against him, because House Do'Urden, after Drizzt's actions and sparing the elf on the surface and all the other things he's done that go against the drow ways, House Do'Urden has fallen out of favor with their god, the spider god Loth. So basically Matron Malice is like, we need to kill Drizzt to get back in Loth's favor. So she sends out her eldest daughter Breeza, who's a complete bitch, and her other son Dinan to lead an expedition to go find Drizzt in the Underdark. They eventually find him, and he basically kicks both of their asses and sends them packing. So when they get back to Matron Malice, she's like pretty enraged. So she calls upon some drastic action. She calls one of Loth's aides or whatever, which is an illithid, an illithid, which is basically I forget what they're called, but they're these really savage, evil beings that are really hard to defeat, and basically serve as Loth's kind of handmaidens or whatever you want to call them. So she calls one and is like, I want to ask a favor of Loth, and she says, I want to enact Zin Karla, and everybody's like, oh. So Zin Karla is basically the spider god Loth will reanimate a corpse so that it doesn't feel any pain, it never tires, and it will be set on an objective, and it won't stop until that objective is complete. So what she does is she brings Drizzet's father, Zach, who was the weapons master that taught Drizzet everything he knew with weapons, but Matron Malice had him killed in the first book as a way to get back at Drizzet and appease Loth after everything that had happened up to that point. So she enacts Zin Karla on Zach Nafine, and then he heads out into the Underdark to track down Drizzet and kill him. In the meantime, Drizzet has found more dwarf expeditions and follows the party back to Blingdenstone again. Only this time he goes into the city and gives himself up. And the dwarves are unsure what to do with him. And then Drizzet's like, do you have a guy that has no hands? And they're like, oh, you mean Belwar? And he's like, yes, Belwar. Get him for me. He can vouch for me. So then Belwar shows up and he's like, oh my God, like this is the dark elf that saved my life, whatever. So Belwar kind of speaks up on Drizzet's behalf and he's like, he's cool. He's not going to cause any problems. I'll take him under my wing and accept all responsibility. So Drizzet starts living in this underground dwarfish city and really feels like he's starting to find a home. Until one day, one of the ruling council of the dwarf city meets with his name's Jarlaxle. He's a drow elf who's more of a freelance guy. He'll work for anybody for pay, and he's kind of an informant for the dwarves. So he brings news that Matron Malice has enacted Zin Karla and Zach is coming for Drizzet. So the ruling council then says, I'm sorry, but you gotta leave. Like, we can't bring this trouble to our doorstep. So Drizzet's like, totally understand, I'm out of here. Belwar's like, you're not going without me. So the two of them set off into the Underdark again. But at least this time Drizzet has company. He's got Belwar as well as Guinevere, right? So the end of the book up to that point is just the two of them trying to get as far away from Menzoberranzan and Blingdenstone as possible to take that trouble away from the dwarves, because they know Zach won't stop until he's, or whatever. He doesn't know that it's Zach. He just knows somebody's coming for him. And so they just try to get far away. And they meet up with another ally that's kind of in a precarious situation. Read the book if you want to find out about that. It's really cool. And so the end of the book, in the end of the book, Drizzet and his two companions get captured by the Illithids, who can use a kind of mind control to make people do their bidding. So they fall into this kind of slavery relationship to the Illithids in their city. But Zach suddenly shows up one day and he starts hacking up Illithids because they can't mind control him because he's a walking corpse, right? So eventually his actions break the mind control on Drizzet and his allies, and a final kind of flight and then fight ensues as Drizzet and his companions escape the Illithid city, but Zach eventually catches up with them, and the final clash takes place. And of course, it's a trilogy, so Drizzet obviously survives. And at the end of the book, he decides, I have no other choice. I can't go back home. I can't live in the Underdark anymore. Got to go to the surface and see what happens. So yeah, he goes up to the surface where he's dabbled once before in his life, and it didn't go well. And we'll have to read the third book to see what happens.